Everybody, welcome to another episode of Personal Mastery Training with the Alliance. We are almost back full force. We have Dr. Charlie and Raymond here with me. I'm Alvin Brown. All right, so let's get started. If you're new to this, real quick, here's what we do. We call this serving up soul food. We're like chefs here, We're serving up the soul food so necessary today. What we do is someone brings a topic, and then we call it the main meal. The rest of us adds to it, and then you get to digest this. And again, we don't own truth. Truth is no one owns it, but we want to suggest some things for you to think about. All right, so today, Dr. Charlie brought the main meal. Really special topic. Today we're going to speak to the topic of stop killing your opportunities, and we'll tell you how you're doing it. Dr. Charlie, hit him up.
Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to be here. And last week was out in Salt Lake City, Utah for a speaking engagement. I had the honor of meeting a gentleman named Sean Bott, and he brought a wisdom that to me is a game changer. And it was concerning opportunity. And he said this: the labels that we place on other people fracture opportunity. And that's so amazing because it's true. When we label someone, we kind of write them off, don't we? And we've decided what they know and what they don't know. And we lose the opportunity that's right in front of us that that human being possesses that we don't even know about. That person might know about a book that could change our life. That person might know another human being that connect us to that would change our life, right? Because you're always one idea or one person away from completely changing your life at all times. That's one of the beauties of life is we're all one great idea well executed or one individual coming into your life that will completely change your life. And so when as human beings, and we've all been guilty of it, so myself included, but when we place our label on somebody, we in essence destroy that opportunity before it ever got a chance to come to life for us to breathe life into it. So it's so important not to label people, but instead be curious about people. And that was another wisdom that was shared. And when we're curious about people, then naturally that starts to build a connection between two human beings. And that's the wisdom I wanted to share today and that we'll be discussing. With that, I'll pass the mic.
All right. Ray, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead. And man, I love the subject of communication, communication, because we're talking about building bridges and connecting to each other. I remember a few years ago doing my first sales training. Okay. And like most people had this mindset where, hey, I'm not a salesman. I don't like this. I don't like that. Anyways. And what really shifted my perspective started with just understanding the importance of curiosity. Okay, curiosity to build bridges and connect with people ahead of simply trying to figure out what to sell them or to check a box. Okay, check a box so I can move on and make my pitch. That's how I see all of us as human beings. When we take a time, okay, to truly observe anyone around us, we understand they all have a story. This story, man, there's a lot of layers, a lot of interesting layers in them that can teach us a lot of truth, about ourselves and about them. Okay, so let's look at each other like that mystery and not instead of a problem that simply needs to be solved. Okay, not everything is a problem, there is something behind that. So when we look at curiosity at the deep level, at the soul level, okay, what I love about this is that it makes relationships and connections active instead of being passive. I'm not sitting there and making up my mind about who you are from the get-go because of something I saw. I'm trying to get closer. I'm coming and asking, why is this the way it is? What's the story behind it? And then I learn so much. And that's how walls are broken down, and that's how bridges are built. And that's why we should all start with just this spirit of curiosity, because it brings back humanity into all of us. Okay, even your enemy. Okay, and I'm not saying become friends with them, but even your enemy, if you have the spirit of curiosity, you learn so much more about them and why they are the way they are. I hope you don't have enemies in your life. I hope the enemy is maybe laziness or your fears or things like that. But look at your fears exactly the same way. Okay. Look at your limiting beliefs exactly the same way with a lot more curiosity, and you'll uncover so much more. Okay. So that you can be whole and that you can see the great stories in beyond everyone. So I'll start with this and I'll pass the mic.
Beautiful. Beautiful topic. And the labels we place on other people fracture opportunities. And, it's human nature. I think it's human nature to just always attempt to predict safety. So, in that, I always lately, in the last few years, have brought everything back. This whole idea of mastery and understanding people. I've really brought everything back to human nature. Fear drives us. Survival drives us. The need for certain things, sex, procreation is at the root of that. So that drives some of our behaviors, greed. And so this idea that I walk in a room, and I wrote this in my book, Journey to Personal Greatness. I wrote this in a book that when we communicate, 93% of communication is nonverbal. So blah blah blah, 7% is my blah blah blah. The rest is you wandering off, thinking about how that connects to your story and how that connects back to this and that. So 93% you're wandering off. You're listening with another whole ear, not the ear and the mind. You're listening with your heart. You're listening with your gut. What's he telling me? Am I safe? You walk in a room, is what I wrote in the book. You walk in a room and you decide the room's, say a doctor's, visit, and you kind of look around the room. Who am I? Where are you going to sit? Well, it's who you kind of resonate with. You scan the room and the gut tells you where to sit because you kind of feel safe. So we do this automatically. But the whole idea behind mastery is hacking into normal human tendencies. So it's not that we sit here and beat ourselves up about doing these things. No, it's about to realize that you're human and this is how you're going to behave. But how can we hack into it and be beyond human, you know? So it is normal for us to do that. But the difference between successful and unsuccessful people is they do squash those things. They remain curious. Because the other thing I wrote here is, have you ever had someone, and this is a lot, I deal with this a lot with my clients. If I knew you when you were young and you didn't know what you're doing, you're a teenager and you're doing your teenage things and whatever it is, and I get to know you. I think I know you, right? But I don't really know you. Familiarity breeds contempt. I stop looking as you get older and growing into who you really want to be and who you are. I'm holding you to that person still. I'm holding you to that old person. A lot of us have this where you're around. Familiarity breeds contempt because the people who know you never let you go to flourish, to become the person you were meant to be. So a lot of times, again, we're killing opportunities. We're killing opportunities to see how your partner can become better, how you can support them, how your kids. Who are your kids now? They're not this 5-year old or the 7-year old or the 12. If they're in their 20s and 30s, they're becoming men and women, and they're unraveling their true self. But see, parents want to hold the typical parent want to hold their kids to who they think they were. But we often don't see who they're becoming because we're familiar, and familiar again breeds contempt. The other thing about killing opportunities with this conversation is we fear what we don't know. Do you know what racism's all about? It's all about that idea that I'm not familiar with that other race. I've heard things and I'm generalizing these things about these people, brown, yellow, blah, blah, whatever names they want to use, you know. We've heard things colored and they've heard things. So that, but it's fear. What we fear, we fear what we don't know. And then when we don't give this thing a chance, we cut it, we fracture this opportunity to find out, hey, this person might add value to me, or I can add value to them, or whatever it might be. We could fix this world with this one. And the world today is a lack, what we see today, the chaos. We did a podcast on the negative news. But what we see today in this fractured world that we live in, speaking of that, is a lack of communication. No one wants to communicate. It's either this or that, black or white. You're in or you're out. No one wants to listen anymore. You can't have an opinion. You can't debate now. It's just instantly you're in or you're out. See, lack of, it's fracturing the world, and we can all feel it. We can all feel it worldwide. Worldwide. So this is a very important conversation. Um, and Ray said that everyone has a story, but if we, it brings me back to another wisdom that I keep sharing lately, and that wisdom is uh, fatigue makes cowards of us all. And I'm saying that because everyone has a story, but if we're so overwhelmed by and fatigued, we don't care. We care to hear your story. Talk to the doctor with the busy schedule and the busy office. You get one complaint, health complaint, and they're on to the next because they're overwhelmed. All right, so you don't get to hear that person's story and hear the real solution to their problem. There's not enough time, and I'm overwhelmed. So, and I wrote here also stories, people's stories. This is Ray brought this up. As he said that, I started to realize that throughout our history as humans, how did we transfer information? We transferred wisdoms and information, and that's where we're enjoying what we have today through transference of information to the next person. Stories. That's how we transfer it on walls, hieroglyphics, and I mean, it's been transferred through books and scripts and scrolls and stories, and then we build on those stories. So if we don't learn to communicate effectively, we're shutting down, we're fracturing all kinds of opportunities in our lives and a chance to grow. And that's again the difference between successful and unsuccessful people is that the successful people are curious always. Imagine if we weren't curious, we wouldn't get anywhere. Uh, and they are great listeners. And they're Dr. Charlie, when he mentioned that Sean Bott, he said within 15 seconds, that's what Dr. Charlie said, he was captivated, gripped to this person. Don't know why, but he was gripped to him. And why? What I heard second was he asked Dr. Charlie, tell me about you. He was curious. And then he introduced himself and showed him what he did. And so he had this way of making Dr. Charlie feel engaged and connected. And Dr. Charlie said he was captivated, not just interested, captivated. So are you killing your opportunities by one walking in and meeting somebody and assuming you know them through their color maybe or their gender or their orientation and you just shut them off? And that person might be the doctor that's driving the Uber who came to your country, and you assume that they're broke or they're bums or they're whatever it might be. But it might be the doctor that says, hey, in my country, this is what we did for this. I don't have my license here, but this is what we did. And you go, oh, wow, I'm going to ask my doctor. And it turns out to be, I don't know, something, just roll off of any opportunity that you might be killing. So with that, I'll just pass the mic back and we'll share that.
So many great wisdoms being shared this morning. And I think, what Ray said about how curiosity builds bridges of connection. That's such a great visual. When we're curious about others, is we're literally building that bridge between us, the two of us, that creates connection. And to your point, Alvin, being genuinely interested in the human being that's standing in front of us is critical, because human beings we've been endowed with so much intelligence. And one of the things innate in all human beings is when you're speaking to them, they can tell if you're genuinely interested or not. They know it. And in a fraction of a second, they know it. So it's not something that you can fake.
Yeah.
And
That's that
100%.
93%.
And this is another wisdom from Sean. He talked about curiosity creates connection. But this one really blew me away. He said the need to be right destroys curiosity. Destroys it. Because if we want to be right, we need to be right. We're so focused on being right, we are no longer curious about this other individual, because our full attention is on being right. And so that is something that will be world changing, right? Is potentially world changing.
Repeat that one
Is
again, Dr. Charlie.
Yeah.
The
So
need to be
the
right.
need the need to be right destroys curiosity,
There it is. Yeah.
destroys it. And so when you need to be right, you're no longer curious about that individual, right? And really, it takes your focus away, because the focus needs to be on the individual that's
Yeah.
speaking to you. Okay. When you totally focus on them and you're curious about them, that connection happens organically. It happens organically because people want to be seen. All human beings, they want to be heard. They want to be valued. And so when we're genuinely curious about another human being, they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel valued, and they open up. With that, I'll pass the mic.
There's so much about what both of you said. I've been taking notes and going in different directions for the past 10 minutes. So I'll try to take my time and make sure I hit as much as what I wanted to say. Okay. Um, let's talk about vision to start off. You just talked about it, Dr. Charlie, Alvin, too, the importance of being seen. Okay. So here's what I wrote down. I find that effective communication allows us to see what others are becoming and what we are becoming ourselves. Okay. And the first step to, let's say, setting goals or achieving anything of value, what is it usually? It's about creating a vision so that you can have a frame and picture it somewhere. The next thing, I think both of you said it too. Let me just go back to my notes. The importance of people feeling seen. And that's so true. I find that when you are seen, defenses drop. Okay. That's for sure. But something else happened. Trust builds. And from trust, I see it every day. Okay. When I coach people, when I have built up my trust tank, I can have influence. Okay, because I can have as much experience or knowledge that I want. If I don't have trust first, it's very difficult to have influence. So you see how everything is connected. One doesn't happen without the other. Now, when it comes to also human beings, okay, let's look at animals, let's look at us. Again, if you're confronted to something you don't know, first reaction we usually get is resistance. Okay, resistance. I keep my hand back. Let me check this out. Okay, put two gorillas in front of one another and they don't know each other. What do you think is going to happen? Very quickly, it can turn into, a confrontation. But effective communication, what I find it does is that it takes us away from fighting each other or looking for flaws into each other to understanding each other. And the more I understand you, the more I can trust you. Okay. The more I get it, the more we can work together. Now it's not so much just about me or you, it's about us. Okay. First sports analogy of the day, guys. Man, when you show up to training camp, whether it's a football team, whether it's boxing, whatever, you go through a lot of stuff, okay? With your coaches, with yourself, with your teammates, it's hard. But in those situations, you get opportunities to turn around, look around you, and the people that are by your side and see how they move, see how they react, see how much they have your back, see how much, they're growing with you. And what happens in that moment is that you build trust. So you start winning games long before you even show up within the game because you have those bonds that simply get stronger. Now, there's an understanding that builds up, let's say with a quarterback and his receiver, where as a quarterback, I can throw the ball before you even make your break. I throw it to a spot. You're not even at the spot, but I trust you that when the time comes, you're going to do what's necessary to be at that spot and make me look good and ultimately make us move forward and make us win. So in life, I truly believe that great communication, great leadership, great teams, okay, really focus on that. They shift away from the I and me or you or them to the us. That's what great communication does. And that's so important. And Alvin said it too. He said mastery is hacking into normal human tendencies. Let's continue to dive into this, okay? Because we know it, normal human tendencies. Hey, I don't know this person, or they're this or they're that, and blah, blah, blah. And I'll give you guys one last example. I thought it was interesting, and I'm not naming any names, but in youth football, as you know, I'm coaching my son's team right now. It's all about the kids, but you have parents involved, you have coaches involved, and emotions can run high, okay, very high for a lot of different reasons. And we end up being the kids, not the kids. They're just playing the game. As I look around, I see parents ending up being the kids. Okay, we're very blessed on our end. We got great, great, great community supporting us. Okay, but I've heard that in the stands, there are certain things being said about like this kid having the ball too much or this kid doing this, and parents are not happy and this. And as coaches, sometimes you got people who really care and they're like, man, okay, so am I being too hard on this kid? Should we take into consideration what this parent says? And as I talk to our coaching staff, I'm like, why are we even talking or thinking about this? Seriously, like from my perspective, we're not in control of what happens in their household or at school or in the world. But whenever they're on this field, okay, it's our role as coaches and mentors to give them the best we can, the best values we can, and whatever they learn from the outside doesn't apply here. So I can care less about what's on the outside. It doesn't affect what's here. If they're not happy, they'll take their kid away. But if their kid is still here, it's because they're seeing that the kid is getting value. So why are we even considering that? Okay. So that's when you build confidence into the people that you're with, right? And that's when you stop going from simply reacting to everything to being more anchored and knowing who you are, and then truly making a real impact. Okay, so when I say hacking into normal human behavior, is that when we do this long enough, we get to a point where I don't care what's being said in the stands or over there. I can care less. It doesn't affect us. It doesn't affect our kids. And that's it. So that just shows you one example where if we weren't having these calls, if we weren't challenging ourselves, it would be so easy to simply react to everything and feel like we do need to do something for everything. But no, when you know you are, when you're anchored, when you know who people are, man, you go about your business, because in the end, you could be the best in the world at what you do. Charlie, you could be the best speaker in the world. Someone will disagree. Someone somewhere will disagree. Does that make it true? Maybe for them, but I can guarantee you that if one day that person meets you and they have a conversation with you, and you're curious about them and they're curious about you, man, it's gonna open up something new. And with that, I'll pass the mic.
Yeah, some great conversations. I want to touch on a couple of key things. We'll go back to Dr. Charlie's quote, well, from that he picked up from Sean. The need to be right destroys curiosity. How many times in the relationships, especially personal ones with your partner at home, or yeah, some relationship that's very important. A client could be sitting in front of you, but you're so focused on being right about this cute little response that you want to give them and how smart you are or whatever it might be, that you, instead of listening to them, this is one of the reasons why on this call, everyone who's listening, this is the reason why we shut off the mic and let that person speak. Instead of, let's say, a call where you typically see a group of people go back and forth and, yammering away. And so we let the other person speak, give them the mic and let them speak, because we want to listen and write and really dive deep into what they're saying. So instead of focusing on my response, and I shut off the last probably 90% of what you said because I'm ready. Okay, you done? Where do I sneak in here? Yeah. No, no, no. You start talking away, never hearing the rest of what they had to say. And then think about relationships, personal relationships. When you're arguing, you're not listening anymore. You're ready. Okay, they're talking too much. I got to get this off my chest. Come on, you done yet? Oh, I see a pause. Okay, God, here's where I come in. You shut off. You just stop listening. And again, everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to be heard. And you might miss the magic. You might miss the magic that might solve your relationship if you want it solved. Maybe if you don't, that's cool. Keep doing that. But if you want to solve your personal relationship or the sales in front of you, or whatever it might be, and that's especially true in sales. Let's move away from relationship. Sales. If you miss what they really want, you can't serve them. And that's the whole idea behind sales, is problem solving. That's what entrepreneurs are, and communicators. They're problem solvers. So to solve the problem, you got to know what the hell you're solving. The real meat. Because people give you, they give you a superficial problem. But the real meat is below that. And you got to be quiet to hear it. The notes between the bars, right? The silence between the notes is what we want to get. And you can't hear that if you're busy waiting for your response. This is where I come in. Okay, go. All right. So I think that's just a key point. The need to be right destroys curiosity. because you're not curious anymore to hear what is it, what is their real problem, especially if you're a coach too. What is their real? Why did they come here? They're saying this, but there's something else. See curiosity. Just let them talk and stop waiting for the reply. Being smart. And Ray pointed out the importance of being seen. That is key. One of my clients long ago taught me this lesson. She said, Alvin, as I'm getting older, I noticed one thing. And at that time, she was probably 60s, mid to late 60s. She says, I noticed that people, as I get older, people are walking around me as if I don't even exist. She says it's weird that if you're not good looking, or if you're not young, or if you're not whatever it is, you start to fade into the background of you just become a bit like a atmosphere. And it's true. Think about, when was the last time you think about this, on a crowded area, when was the last time you looked at a senior? Really looked at them. Other than seeing a character in your play and you walk by them. They're background actors now. They're not, right? So eventually they disappear. They just become a space. They take up space. And that really hit me, that a couple of things. One, yeah, we all do it at some point. We don't really see that person. And everyone craves to be seen and heard. Everyone. I don't care if you're introvert or you're shy. We crave to be heard and seen. And what it also tells me is, flip it. What it tells me also is that we have to become someone who's seen. So what that means is, throughout my life, I want to be of value. Even if I'm 100, who can I serve so I'm of value? So I become not invisible, not lost to the world. So yeah, it's a key thing, is that curiosity is do you want to, are you interested, or do you just want to be right? Do you just want to be always, state your point, never listen to anyone, and ready to snap? And in today's world, I go back to today's world. Today's world is, if I hear that you're not on my side, I'm ready to snap. I'm ready to give you my reply and tell you why I'm right about this research. I looked at this. I'm for the vaccine. I'm not. I'm for this kind of affiliation, but I'm not. I'm not listening anymore. Why you're for that? Why do you believe that? I'm not listening. I'm ready to just crush you, demolish you, because I'm so polarized today. So I think if we bring back this curiosity piece and this interest in others, what their opinion is, I think we solve world peace right there, in my opinion. One part of it, anyways. All right, with that, I pass the mic.
Wow. It's amazing how these conversations flow. And as you were speaking out and tuned me into a wisdom that I've been sharing for a few years now, but this conversation has really solidified it in my mind. And it's this. So, curiosity is a prerequisite to friendship. Never thought about it that way. I never looked at it that way, okay? So keep that nugget in mind. Curiosity is a prerequisite to friendship. Now, one of my favorite wisdoms of all time, and Ray mentioned it earlier, getting along with people, hopefully you don't have enemies, but how do you overcome those enemies, right? And it was interesting. This wisdom came from Abraham Lincoln, who was U.S. president here. I want to say he was the 16th president. I can't remember for sure, but he's my favorite president, historically. And after the Civil War in the United States, he gave a speech in the North. And during this speech, he said, we must embrace our brothers and sisters from the South. And a woman in the audience raised her hand and challenged him on that. And she raised her hand, and her question was, so are you asking us to embrace our enemies? Which is a great question. But his answer was one for the ages. It's timeless. And he said, Madam, if I turn my enemy into my friend, is my enemy not destroyed? How do we turn our enemies into our friends? Curiosity. Why do you think that way? Why would you say that? So, where did you learn that from? Where are you from? Tell me about your childhood. How did you grow up? Curiosity. And all of a sudden, it's an amazing thing. When two human beings get together, they can look different, have completely different backgrounds. But once they start communicating, what they find is their differences shrink, right? Because human beings want the same things, right? Their family is important to them, right? Relationships are important to them, right? Financial security is important to them, right? Physical safety is important to them, right? I mean, it's universal. We all want those same things. And so when we're curious about other people, then we get to learn about them, and those walls come down organically, right? And instead of trying to knock those walls down, you know, with the with a sledgehammer, that when we get curious about other human beings, they take those walls down on their own. And when they take them down, it stays down. But if we try to knock them down, as soon as we're knocking it, as fast as we're knocking it down, they're trying to repair it and build it back up. So, wow, the importance of curiosity is massive when it comes to human relationships, our quality of life, and our future. With that, I'll pass the mic.
Wow. Hey, you know what, guys? There's a running gag at my work, okay, right now that um I make a lot of people cry, but in a good way, okay, in a good way, not in a bad way, okay, and I'll explain why. Again, I meet a lot of entrepreneurs day to day, okay, to help them and coach them on different levels, and Charlie, you just talked about asking the right questions. A lot of what I do is simply that, okay, where I meet them, I look them in the eye, I connect with them, and I ask questions. And it happens very often that I'm going to ask one question and then people start to break down. People start to break down either from like happiness or whatever, but then from there, man, we can do real work, because I see it this way, okay? Effective communication. Imagine all of us are walking towards a precipice, and that precipice, we perceive it to be something very, very scary. But on the other end, that precipice is freedom. Okay. It's complete freedom. It's a place where we can truly be ourselves. And one thing we talked about today is a place where we let go. We let go. And great things happen. Well, I find every good question gently pushes or guides the person towards that precipice. Okay, towards that precipice where at some point they're right in front of it, looking down, and it's that tipping point. Okay, and it's that tipping point. And once they jump, everything changes. Okay, everything changes, and we let go. We let go. So I love that wisdom from Abraham Lincoln because it makes me think of a lot of things myself. And to stay on subject, but to give maybe a tip or two um, to help build that effective communication, I'll talk about very briefly about two concepts. First one is called calm. Um, what am I saying? I'm losing my word. Okay, so I'll go to the last one. The last one is called speaking with conviction, and the first one is calm confidence. Yeah, so calm confidence, speaking with convictions. So try this, guys. As you ask your questions, okay, display calm confidence. We're not in a fight with someone else. We're very calm, but we're confident. Okay, as we're looking to get closer. If we're gonna build that bridge, we gotta build that bridge with intent. Okay. And in an environment of calm confidence, people feel safe. People feel safe. Okay. So calm confidence. But once you see what you see in someone else or in yourself, I guarantee you, Charlie, Sean Bott, that mentalist that we're talking about, amazing guy. I'm sure in his voice there was a lot of conviction, okay, for what he saw in you. And I see every relationship or a sales presentation or a any type of presentation or conversation as a crescendo. Okay, as we build that trust, we start going up. And when we get to a point, if we speak with conviction, if we throw that in the recipe, that's when everything can break open and we can definitely reach a next level. So this is my challenge for everyone and for myself too. Once I know what I know, okay, once I've given the space to know what I know and to push myself and to take it all in and to break my walls, speak with more conviction about yourself and about the great things that you see in others. You know, that's such an important thing because we can pour into each other. We have that ability and we have that power. Let's use this power of conviction into our communication. And with that, I'll pass the mic.
All right. So my final word then is this. Dr. Charlie pointed this out. For 30 years, I've been in the communication field. And I say that because for 30 plus years, or more actually, um, I've been working with people. And yes, I've been delivering a service. But a large part of that service is the communication of what I'm doing. Raymond pointed out calm confidence, conviction. When I deliver my techniques, it's very convicted, very confident. And one thing I would add to your mix here, Ray, the two mix of calm confidence and speaking with conviction is transferring a feeling of non judgment to realize that every human, to err is to be human, to forgive is divine. Every human comes a little bit flawed, which is what the beauty of us. There's no perfect human. So when you can let somebody realize that they can bear their soul to you and you're not judging them, that's the biggest feedback I get from people is that they don't feel judged. Because I can relate to a lot of what people are going through in so many ways. So that little third piece is a non-judgmental, and it might come across in a calm confidence, might be mixed in, but it's a piece that we should highlight. So my point though is for 30 years I've been in the communication field by way of my hands, through energy, through voice, through actual NLP coaching. And one thing I realized is that at the core, There's no difference, man. The things we fight about is this noise. Noise. Oh, what color are you? Whatever. What culture are you? All of this stuff is noise. But at the core, when I lay my hands or listen to someone, all they want to do is be heard. They want to do right for their family. They want to live out their dreams and their passions. They just want simple things when we all want the same thing. All of us. I don't care what color, gender, orientation you are. That's noise. At the core level, we all want the same thing. So that's why we can connect with people if you are curious, if you're non judgmental, if you are, again, not in fear. Again, we fear what we don't know. Bottom line is that, are they really coming in and doing this to our, bringing the worst across? And are they, going to our neighborhoods? Are they going to rape, pillage, and they, right? Oh, they're like this. I heard this and heard. And we talked about this in another episode prior to this, where the news, I could go into a country. I remember my son when he came to me. I remember my trip to Germany when I was in doing martial arts. I went to Germany. I was going to. This was in the '90s, late '80s, '90s, and I was going to Germany with my ignorant self, expecting to see Nazis. Expecting to see, not realizing that this is a very multicultural place now. It's a very welcoming, and like any other place, they have their not welcoming, but then it's an overall welcoming place. If I go into the U.S. and I'm in Canada now, if I go into the U.S., so many people hear a word about ICE and being, again, I call the source and say, how's it going down there? Boom. So I don't have this fear of the unknown, and that's what builds, confrontation, fear, because you don't know what you don't know. How about being curious and getting to know? And curiosity means I'm going to do a little research. I'm going to do a little look. I'm going to look because my goal is to find out what's good about this place. What's good about that person? That's what curiosity is. Not I'm curious about what else is bad. What can I add to the mix here? No, curiosity means I'm trying to figure out if I'm right about if this information is correct. I'm curious, and I'm looking for it not to be correct, so I can actually rest in peace. I can be peaceful in my mind. So, those are key points, and that's where I will wrap it there. And just going back and summarizing, you are killing any opportunity you have to move forward. Business, life, sports, you name it. An athlete who isn't curious anymore is pretty much done. They're not going to learn the new technique. They're not going to learn the new way of catching that ball or doing something. They're not going to listen to the coach, whatever it might be. They're not going to innovate. They're not going to grow. The opponent will know how they fight because they're not willing to change. In business, same thing. What if you're not curious? I love this story of blockbusters and Netflix. They weren't curious to find out what this internet was. No, we're going to stick to this one. No one's going to go online. Okay, now where's Blockbuster? They're gone. Netflix is now one of the top movie makers. Curiosity, relationships. Your partner is changing. They're not the same as when you met them. Are you curious to know why? Or are you just going to want to keep them the same because it makes you feel safe? Anyways, that's my last word. We'll pass the mic, get some, wrap up, and give us the one thing that you're going to do this week.
All right. Great discussion today, fellas. My one word is going to be non-judgment. Non-judgment. Just approaching relationships, conversation with no judgment. And then that curiosity that we spoke about can come out.
Love it. Ray, what do you think?
Yeah. My one word for this week will be love. because I believe communication and even curiosity is love in action in some way, shape, or form. It's refusing to reduce someone to its background, any type of labels we can think about, and refusing to reduce ourselves to the same thing. There's more in it. Let's dig in with a little bit of love to find it. Find whatever that is.
Right. And I'm gonna go with curiosity. I'm glad you didn't take that, Ray. Um, because yeah, curiosity is everything. It is the key to growth, the key to solving problems, to understanding, to yeah, getting to know your world. So curiosity. I'm diving deeper. All right, my friends, listeners, we appreciate you each week. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. We hope we served you right. We hope we served something. And remember, we're going to leave it the one thing that my mentor, Dr. Tom Hill, taught us. One idea. If you heard it, one idea. It just struck you. Execute. One idea well executed can change your life, your world forever. So you didn't come here for 20 ideas. You might have got them. I think you did. But what's the one idea that you'll act on? Until next time. All right. Before we go, we're going to wish you what? A whole lot of peace in your world. We need it today. Topped with a lot of love and a sprinkle of soul food. Here we go. All right. All right, everybody. Until next time. Peace and love. We're out.